Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. This is my dad, Ted.
Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Knightsky. Hey, I've been gone a couple of weeks here, but I spent the last few weeks getting regrounded, reading, researching, relaxing, writing, spending time outside, being with my family, doing all the things I love to do, and it's been awesome. It's amazing how you walk through life thinking you don't need a break or time off, and then you go on vacation only to find yourself realizing, boy, did I need some time. And then you come out of that on the other end of that time off and just you're totally refocused and ready to go. And one of the things I want to talk about is what I kept seeing on vacation. And it was mindsets and attitudes all around me. I'm what I would describe as a nosy people watcher. If I'm at the airport or a conference or sitting waiting at a bus stop or a train stop, I tend to lean into loving watching people. I am, let's put it this way. I weirdly don't just watch. I tend to lean in and listen. My wife doesn't like that I do this, and my brother calls it table breaking, breaking table and listening to the table next to you. However, I was recently traveling a bunch for work and life and found myself in a lot of airports. Sitting there with my AirPods in, listening to the newest Harry Styles album or Lily Allen or Guster records, I don't know, but anyways, I have a real knack for noticing the people in the world who are positive and upbeat. Why? Because it's my club. And sadly, we're not a very big club. It seems that most people pay dues to the perpetually pissed off pessimists and problem lovers of the World Club. So many people in situations where they are looking for reasons to lean into negativity. So when I'm out and about, I love to watch people's reactions, see people's situations, and lean in when I can. I'm pretty annoying to others, actually. I tend not to mind my own business and lean into the people and focus on positivity. Why? Well, it's all I know. And as I just wrote, I have already been through my hardest days and gotten through them to be here with you today. And just like you too have been through your hardest days. So why would I let those experiences define my now or tomorrow? Oh, but Ted, people need to have the opportunity to vent and complain and be upset. Yeah, I agree, but not for days or forever. We either overcome or we succumb to our experiences. And when we overcome, it means we focused on the behaviors of the buffalo, learned and kept moving. When we succumb, we focus solely on the things happening to us, and we maintain a mindset that is as a result of people doing things to us, people not paying attention to us, and giving up our control of our own destiny. Well, that's weird. That's why I want to charge you with one thing: normalizing positivity. Now, before we get too far, a few reminders. Number one, we're all leaders. And a leader is anyone who has influence over another person, meaning every single day, everywhere you go, everything you do, you are modeling for others, they are learning from you, and whatever energy you are bringing is what you are teaching them to do in similar situations. And then, of course, we're also followers. People who follow leaders, follow missions, follow purpose, and follow our own values. And we do that by making sure we are collaborating with other people, holding ourselves accountable, being resilient in every situation, and choosing to be engaged in every environment that we are in. Because again, engagement is on us. No one can create the conditions to make me happy or make me engaged. I have to choose to do that. Which then leads to empathy, the ability to truly reflect upon the world around you, making sure that you are asking yourself questions like, what would it be like to be this person in front of me right now? Or what would I need if I were them? And then finally, reflection, the ability to end every day asking yourself, what did I do well for others and what can I do better tomorrow? And all of that leads into one lifestyle, and that is the lifestyle of a buffalo leader, someone who truly believes in the bottom of their heart in the front of their head that they can take on any problem that they are facing and they can go to that storm to get through it quicker. All right, now before I get into the research and a strategy, as always, I have a quick story for you. Over the last few months, people who have been traveling by air have had a few strange experiences, and one of them is flight delays as a result of security and weather. The government shut down for a while, they stopped paying TSA agents, and, well, that has led to some bottlenecks. When I was in those airports over the last few months, I got to see the best of people who work there and the worst of humanity. I get how frustrating it is when you are traveling and you lose all sense of control. However, I don't get how that becomes the problem of everyone around you. I watched as people who were complete strangers now had a shared problem, and they would immediately join in the chant of pessimism together. Can you believe this? I can't. This is always happening. Nobody around us cares. The government doesn't understand what we're doing. And then they would turn on the customer service people. Oh, my little heart. Grandiose comments like, "This is so typical. No one cares about us. This is ridiculous. How can they let this happen?" I'm not saying that the experience is not frustrating. I just think that it's weird that so many people immediately run away from the storm they are facing, herd up with other angry people, and give their mental energy to things beyond their control. I mean, everyone in the airport or in the air is sharing the same frustrations, from the pilots to the poor soul working the gate that's getting yelled at by people for things he or she can't control. I also think it's funny that when I say things like, well, hey, this 30-minute delay gives us the opportunity to have more $25 cinnamon buns with a big smile on my face, I get really dirty looks from people, and sometimes a good slug in the arm from my wife. Well, I watch the power of positivity and what happens in those stressful situations when there is genuine and authentic positivity from people when there is highly charged and stressful environments all around them. And good things can happen. Here's what happened. We were traveling home after a week in Florida, and I'm very blessed that I get to do this. And it was a week where I was put in a situation where I was forced to relax, and boy, did I need it. This is a senior retirement kind of gated community we were in with my amazing in-laws, and all we heard every day was the horror stories at the pool from the other families who lived there about the lines at the airport, the delayed flights. I can't believe this happened. This wrecked our trip, etc., etc. And I just sat there thinking to myself, if it wrecked your trip, why are we floating in a pool in 91-degree weather here enjoying ourselves? People were coming in from all over the country to visit their parents at this destination, and it seemed that everyone came to the pool with another story or a different narrative. Again, none of my business. But boy, do those AirPods fall out fast when people are talking at the pool. And I love learning from others. Well, when it was finally our time to go home, our mindset was, it's going to suck. When we get to the airport, it's going to be horrible. People were telling us in the media that we needed to get there 3 to 4 hours early. We had heard stories at the pool about the nightmares of security and how the planes were late, and even refueling became an issue. So we left for the airport prepared to stand in line for hours. We had snacks, water, everything in anticipation of standing there. Well, we got dropped off at the airport, and the lines were short, like maybe 20 minutes short. Now, that doesn't sound short to some people, but it was very short when you went there thinking you were going to sit there for 3 hours in the line waiting to go. I think everyone who is blessed with the opportunity to travel by air understands that the single most stressful 5 minutes of the entire trip is when you get screened and you go through and you have to empty your pockets, take out your laptop and drop everything in and basically get undressed, run through the security piece, and then stand on the other end and put it all back together while people you think are staring at you negatively. Well, as we were waiting to experience that, we were standing in line, and we were with, Mr. Charlie Knightsky, my 23-year-old social studies teaching son, because he came on the trip with his mom and I so he could visit his grandparents. We were standing in the, the queue, ready to go into the TSA line, and as we were standing in the line, we see a TSA agent in his late 60s walking up the empty lane next to us that is closed. As he approaches us, my son says, "Sir, I hope you're having a good day." That's it. That's all he said. The man stopped and looked at Charlie. Now, I imagine that the last few weeks for this man have been plenty tough. Probably just been shy of living in hell. And with frustrated travelers, working with no pay because of the government shutdown, and the natural chaos of working in Florida in March during spring break. He smiled at Charlie and asked him, "Hey, how many people are with you?" And Charlie said, "It's just me and my 2 parents." We all smiled at him with the empathy of people who've been in education our entire lives and understand what it's like to work in the public and with lots of people who could be in lots of different moods. Well, he did something. Suddenly, the agent unclipped the divider belt and told the 3 of us to follow him. But as we were walking away, it ignited the perpetually pissed off pessimists. We heard one lady say, "Well, that must be nice." Another traveler say, "What the blankety blank?" And as the guy led us to the front, he turned to Charlie and simply said, "Thanks for being nice." He brought us to the front of the line of the TSA agent pieces. We blew past everybody. I smiled and joined in Charlie's positive energy with the TSA agent, thanked him very much, told him have a great day, and he smiled and walked away. I turned and watched him walk back up the line of people, and I would have thought everyone would have learned from what they saw with my son. the being kind part. I thought people would have showered this man with love and praise as he walked by because that behavior just occurred right in front of them, and you would think that would have positively reinforced them to be positive because it's cool to be kind. Nope. Their reaction to his kindness for us was not matching the kindness to him. Instead, he was met with disgust by a few people in the line who audibly sneered at him. I felt horrible for him, and yet proud of my son. Charlie, as we were at the front of an empty lane, turned and said, "You know what? It always pays to be nice. Hey, Dad?" While I felt proud of him and grateful to the man that brought us to the front of the line, I was worried that the sneering and swearing lady that we stood next to in the line before would end up next to me on the flight home. I tell you that story because I want to normalize positivity. Why, in that line, does everybody share in misery? We shouldn't. It is normal to be negative, and if you're positive in situations like the one I just described, well, people think they think you've been in the forest eating random mushrooms because you're weird. Why? Why is it weird to be positive? Why are we more inclined to be negative or at best neutral in our days? Well, I think it's because we are not challenging the negativity, because we expect it, and negativity is loud. We sell a lot of our mental real estate to pessimism instead of positivity. So why is this? Well, first, I don't know, because it's not natural. Like literally in nature, it is not normal for negativity to attract more negativity. Think about it. Nothing would work. Magnets, electricity, batteries, chemical bonding all occur because a negative attracts a positive, or a positive attracts a negative. All of it attracts the opposites and connects the opposites and connects the two of them to create a better state for both. Why is it then in human nature, in our cultures, that when one person is negative, it attracts more negativity and tends to reject positive forces? It doesn't make sense. Well, first, it's because we have not normalized bringing in positivity into negative situations. Second, if you are by nature positive under unique or trying situations, it is difficult to be authentic when you know that others are they're just going to greet your positivity with cynicism. It's tough, which means we need to be buffalo through these situations. How? How do we do that? Well, wait a second. Before I get into a process, I thought of one other thing. You know that I am a big believer in leading with Clifton strengths as a base of understanding within leadership and life. So I got curious about one of my top 5, positivity. I wondered, wait, are people not capable of leading or living with positivity? Am I weird? Turns out, yes, I'm weird, but I'm not different. But then I saw 2 things. First, according to Gallup's historical data, positivity is one of the more common themes to appear in people's top 5, though it is not the most frequent. And based on the data from over 20 million people who have taken the assessment, positivity appears in approximately 12 to 15% of people's top 5. Second, you can be positive. You just have to work at it. But if you have positivity as a strength, it means that you have contagious energy. People with positivity as a natural strength have a knack for making things more exciting and lighthearted. They have optimism because they are naturally inclined to look for the silver lining, which can be a massive asset for the people around them. And they tend to be resilient because they focus on what's going on and what's going well. They tend to bounce back from setbacks faster than most other people. I took that directly from Gallup. It's also worth noting that 13% might sound low in a group of all the 34 possible themes that you have in Clifton, but it actually places positivity overall for everyone in the upper middle tier of frequency. If you have it in your top 5, you're the person others likely look to when things get stressful or heavy. But the majority of 20 million people, have positivity in their top 34. What's going on then? Well, people who have positivity in their 10, well, they by their nature lean into positivity all the time. And that means we can be attracted to them instead of rejecting them. Human nature versus all of nature is weird that we lean away from positivity as a natural instinct. It's weird that we look at naturally positive people like they're naive and that we push it away because it's easier to, plant your patoot on the negative real estate versus having to work the land of positive. Come on, friends. We need to normalize positivity. Okay, Ted, how do we do that? Now, everybody knows when I speak in third person, something important's about to happen. Well, first we have to recognize that positive energy is an equal energy and positive cultures do actually exist. Then we need to look at what occurs in those cultures. Then we need to grow positive habits just like we would grow muscles. And heck, we're all eating protein and everything all of a sudden. So let's start absorbing positivity in everything. I mean, if they can jam portions of protein in Doritos, we can jam positivity into our days. To normalize positivity, we have to learn to pull people into it. And the process I have for you is called gravity. That's right. Gravity is a force, well, you can't avoid. I mean, those 4 people who just went up in Artemis and flew around the moon, they avoided it, but they came right back to it. Heck, gravity's the one thing that pulled that energy back to the Earth. Okay, I'm going to give you things to start doing and things to stop doing if you want to normalize positivity. Because when I was researching nature's use of negative and positive forces, I stumbled upon the one thing in nature that we need to think about, and that is what keeps us literally on the earth. Gravity. Turns out that all the laws of science bring us to the opposites attract type of mindset. Positive to negative, negative to positive. But interestingly, gravity is the odd one out. Unlike electricity or magnetism, gravity's only attractive. Much like me. Hey-oh. Anyways, there is no such thing as negative gravity or negative mass in the standard Newtonian physics that repels a positive mass. In the world of gravity, everyone attracts everyone regardless of the charge that they have. Oh, that means we have to be the gravity. So gravity will be the strategy, pulling people into a world where positive is normal. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop doing certain things as individuals or cultures. First one here for you. Before we start doing anything new, you always need to stop doing something. And if we're going to use the gravity principle to pull in all forces, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop gossiping. Yeesh. If there's one way to rapidly sell off all of your mental real estate, it's to join in gossip. Knock it off. One of the things that we have to stop doing is, I heard this, and did you hear? And enjoying that, and enjoying bringing, a culture of negativity and bringing a culture of, watching other people fail and enjoying it. That's crazy. So here's how we stop gossip. My favorite line when people gossip to me or around me is I usually lean in there and say, if you gossip to me, you must gossip about me. Nobody gossips to you after you say something like that. As a matter of fact, it makes everybody feel uncomfortable, and that's what they'll do. Here's another stop. Stop sitting or standing near negativity. Simply walk away. There's no need to sit there and listen or passively contribute with your presence as others are amplifying negativity. It's uncomfortable and unkind, and it's a practice that I don't understand why people do it. And you need to practice self-empathy and ask yourself, what do I need to do right now? What do I need for me personally to be successful in this situation? It's likely to get the heck out of there. What would it be like to learn that you were being talked about in that type of environment, or people were just bashing and banging on things that are beyond their control, building negative narratives that were just creating more paranoia and, frankly, anxiety for everybody around them? Well, stop. Get out of it. And here's the second thing from this idea of stop sitting or standing near negativity. Stop engaging in social media. Quit. I stopped going on Facebook after too many things were put on there a few months ago, and after 4 days of not being on there, my life was weirdly no different at all. My emotions were stronger, but I certainly wasn't worrying about stuff. I wasn't engaging in things. I wasn't reading the comments. In other words, I didn't miss anything that was out there, and I was mentally healthy all of a sudden. We live in a world where people read the headlines and the comments and not the story. We need to read the story, and we need to make our own decisions. So we need to stop engaging in these negative environments. Another step, stop immediately believing the negativity or the negative narrative and ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question is this true? And what is the evidence that it is or is not true? And 2, what is motivating these people around me to be so negative? Are they protecting something? Are they afraid of change? Are they envious? Are they unkind by nature? And why do I want to be associated with this? If you don't stop doing certain things, well, you can't start doing anything. So the last stop is actually our start. Stop ignoring negativity and start being the gravity, the force that pulls all forces together and energizes everyone. Normalize positivity by engaging it and engaging it all, the positive and the negative. I've created for you a simple series of strategies to embrace this week and every day moving forward so that you can create a world in which positivity is normalized. And here's what they are. The first one is see it. The second one is seek it. The third is be a supermodel. And 4, expect it. I'm assuming you're all most intrigued by the supermodel one, so relax, Fabio fans. We'll get there. But let's start with see it. See it by celebrating and reinforcing it. The goal here is to stop good work from being invisible. We often only speak up when something is broken. Well, this flips the script. One of the things you can do is do what's called caught in the act and do shout outs in meetings, emails. It's even better in a handwritten card, but call out a specific small win someone else achieved. Instead of good job, say, I notice how you handled that difficult client with patience. I notice how you resiliently got through that situation with that student. It really helped the team. It helped all of us. It helped the class. Whatever it is, call it out. Shout it out. The second is 2-to-1 ratio. Aim for 2 pieces of positive reinforcement for every 1 piece of constructive feedback. It keeps the emotional bank account in the black. In other words, you'll have more positives than negatives or things people will worry about. And finally, I like this one a lot. Visualize win board. Whether it's a physical whiteboard or a Slack channel, create a space dedicated solely to the daily wins, the positive things that happened in our environment. I mean, imagine if you worked in a high school and you walked down to the office to get your mail or say hello to the secretary or stop and grab some supplies, and you looked up on the wall and there was just filled with Post-it pads of all the great things that have occurred this week in this school. Or if you worked in a hospital or a fire station or a police station or a law firm or wherever, and you just looked up and you saw everyone contributing to a positive environment, and it became normal to do so. That would be awesome. But that starts with somebody having to start it. Now, let's move into seek it. Okay, so we saw see it, now it's seek it. Find other positive people. Positivity is social. You need a battery pack of people who recharge you rather than drain you. And then you build a herd of those people. Here's one. Do the energy audit. Take a look at your inner circle, the people around you. Who leaves you feeling motivated? Who leaves you feeling exhausted? Spend 10% more time with the rechargers, the people who make you motivated, who give you energy, who bring sunshine to your world, and start stepping away from the people who make you feel tired. The second one is one of my favorites. Find a positivity mentor. Sometimes we need to unlearn and relearn, so invite a colleague you admire who's always positive and ask them to go for a coffee or sit down with you for a soda or a beer or a margarita or whatever you want. And then just ask them, can you please share your outlook on life? Like, how do you do this? How do you stay so level-headed when things get chaotic? How do you see the good in all situations? And then learn from them. Because, again, we have to unlearn to relearn, and sometimes we have been trained through our life experiences to only look for the ways in which the world is out to get us. Well, there's so many ways that we are in the world to get it. Now, the last one here under Seek It is, create curated digital spaces. Unfollow accounts or leave groups that thrive on outrage. Replace them with communities focused on growth or solutions. Or, like I said before, just get off social media altogether. But the choice is yours. It's always yours. You have to find the positive people. Now, supermodel, Fabio. If you don't know who Fabio is, I can't believe it's not butter. Google it. It's pretty funny. Anyways, a supermodel models positivity. This isn't about being a toxic optimist running around saying, it's going to be okay, we're going to be fine. It's about being the person who brings solutions instead of problems, who is a real optimist and bets on themselves to win as a result of believing that things will be okay. Even when they're not, they continue to keep their head up, moving forward into that storm. And once you do that, or you find people like that, well, others will follow, as will you. One of the things that works the best when you want to model positivity is to shift the words but with and. And it's the yes and technique. It's borrowed from improv, and we've talked about this. When a coworker suggests an idea, instead of saying, but that won't work, try yes, and we could make that even stronger if. Did you hear the language? Wouldn't it be nice to be on the other end of that type of constructive criticism instead of, well, but we've tried that before and it's not going to work. Well, and we've tried that before, but how do you think we'll make it work this time? Just shuffling the words around makes it positive. And then finally, reframing challenges. You want to be a supermodel? Well, when a project hits a snag, or we don't hit the objectives we thought we were, and we didn't find the success, or the plan didn't go where we wanted it to, be the first to say, wow, this is a setback. But what's the one thing we can learn from it right now? What did we learn and grow from? And say things like, so what? So what are we going to do about it? And just bring the positivity. Now, the next one is expect it. And expect it means you just have to anticipate the best in others. Positivity is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you walk into a room expecting a fight, you'll usually find one. And the same stands true if you walk into a room with enthusiasm. People will respond. So there's a couple of things you want to do. The first is the assumption of good intent. And before a difficult conversation, tell yourself, this person's doing their best. They can with all the tools they have. It changes your tone immediately. The morning intentionality minute is another thing that I like to do. Before starting work, before starting your day, write down one positive thing that you expect to happen today. And then make it happen. And then standard setting. When you expect it, you have to delegate or collaborate or communicate with others. Well, you have to explain that you expect high quality and positive interactions with people. You expect the people to be resilient. People often rise or sink to the level of expectations that you set, and an unspoken expectation can never be met. So when you say things like, I expect that we are resilient through struggle, I expect that we are positive when we come across burdens, and I expect that this team works together in a way in which that everyone around us will envy us because we are positively charged as we are going into our storm. Coach them up or coach them out is the final thing. You and I too often will tolerate negativity and just say, well, we have to put up with it. You actually do not have to have negative people around you. Positivity and negativity boil down to a very simple one-word behavior: choice. So choose to be the gravity. Be the one who normalizes positivity by seeing it, seeking it, modeling it, and expecting it. Normalizing positivity comes down to my two favorite sayings: an unspoken expectation can never be met, and a behavior ignored is a behavior reinforced. Well, speak your expectations, expect positivity, and disengage from anything short of it. Negativity in human nature does not have to attract others. You do not have to be negative. You do not have to believe you have no control. You do have to make a choice. What kind of life am I going to live? What kind of leader am I going to be? And what do I expect from myself? Who am I going to hang around with, and how can I learn to be positive? Positive will always attract negativity in nature, but together they have purpose. And in human nature, we seem to lack that. Well, you can be the one thing that attracts it all. Through process, we can increase our purposes, and that will attract all energies. So this week, it's up to you what you want to do. And I want you to be the gravity. So let's do some smart thinking. List the people you need to spend more time with and those you need to spend less time with. Describe how you naturally respond to stressful situations. Are you positively charged or negatively charged? Or are you the gravity? List the strategies you can employ to be the gravity and buffalo leader that others will be drawn to. That's it. That's the Smart Thinking Podcast. Hey, as always, please remember to share this and rate this episode. I do have a very big favor for you, and I ask every week, and I really need you to go on to your platform and just hit 5 stars and write a 1-sentence piece for me. I'm trying to attract more authors to the podcast, and now when you ask authors, you have to share with them what your ratings are and what type of comments you get and who your audience is. Well, I have lots of things on who my audience is, and I've got a bunch of comments, but I don't have a lot of ratings. So if you could help me out there on Apple or Spotify, I'd really, really be grateful to you. Also, if you have other topics you want me to address as we close out this year and go into next year, please just email me whatever questions you have, or if you're looking for advice or support or a speaker or whatever, just email me at ted@cesa6.org, CESA, the number 6.org. And finally, thank you to the Well Pennies for always allowing us to use their great music, as well as Golden Bear Studios in Des Moines, Iowa, for allowing us access to their catalog. Without that, I don't know that I'd always be able to end these episodes with some fun, whimsical music to take us into our ride, into our work, or, as one of you always tells me, Ted, I fold laundry every Sunday night listening to your voice. Pretty cool. Okay, as we close out, I want to share a quick realization I had a couple of weeks ago. A few weeks ago, I was finishing up a leadership training, and I was approached by a person who was genuinely interested in hearing why I am the way I am. If you've ever been in a room with me or worked with me, you know that I'm not going to sit still quietly. I'm not going to sit around and float around in a cloud of negativity. I'm going to move really quick to charge that cloud so that rain drops and we can get through it quickly through positivity. And at this particular thing, I had been working with executives in the fire service. In other words, fire chiefs, fire captains, fire lieutenants, and assistant chiefs. Men and women who are often dealing with highly stressful and traumatic situations. Well, one chief stopped me in the hall and asked me, "Ted, how do you think people can stay positive through trauma or right after trauma?" I had no answer for him. I didn't want to jump into the whole buffalo mindset thing in this moment because it would not be appropriate. Not at all. I have plenty of friends who work in the fire service, and I know many of those men and women. And when they come back from a car crash or a traumatic event in a home, you can't just start telling jokes and making them smile. These are people who work in very difficult situations that need to be dealt with in very different ways. And I just said that to him. But then he asked me a challenging question. He said, "Ted, have you ever been in a highly traumatic life and death situation?" He was not being rude or cynical. He was genuinely wondering. I felt my face go flush as a core memory overwhelmed and came over me. He saw that and he said, "Oh, I see that you have." I nodded and he asked if I would share what happened and how I dealt with it. I took a breath. I didn't really want to share it with him, but when we were done, he told me I needed to share that story with others. So here it is. I'm a really positive person. I think you know that. I hope that's what attracts you to the podcast. And even through the most difficult times in my life, I am always thinking about what is happening in the moment, how that is a lesson happening for me, and I tend to see the world in slow motion when things get really chaotic. I have experienced significant trauma as a young person, a child, a young adult, and occasionally in my summative years, like my old person years. But a few years ago, I had one that I had not seen coming. I got a phone call at 11:36 p.m. at night, and it was my dad telling me that I needed to immediately get to the hospital as fast as I could. All he said was, "Things are good, but your brother and I are both in the emergency room for different things." I snapped out of bed, and I drove to the hospital thinking my older dad had been admitted for something very significant. He never called me. And my brother, after all, my younger brother was in his 40s, and he's 6 years younger than me, so I didn't give him a second thought. When I got to the emergency room, I was immediately greeted by staff. This elevated all of my senses. And weirdly for me, as someone with a lot of energy, when things become hectic or traumatic, I have a slow heart rate and I see things with great clarity. As I was escorted to the two rooms in the emergency area, I was surprised as I walked down the hall to see my dad standing and walking towards me. He looked at me with shallow eyes and said, "It's your brother." I was confused because my dad had tubes in his arms and was all bandaged up and banged up and had blood on his hands and he had a cut on his forehead. I asked him if he had been in an accident and he just said nothing. I walked past him and noticed, looking back, that he had sat down. I walked into the room to see my youngest brother, John, and a huge mess on the floor. My brother John is my height. He was like 6 foot, but 280 pounds, larger than life, tons of energy, a beautiful man, the greatest uncle any kids could ever have. But as I looked to the floor, there were papers everywhere, needles, face masks. I saw chest paddles, and I saw my brother unconscious on the table and quickly realized that he was dead. I also saw that my mom was there. She was crying unconsolably because, by forces only known to the universe and God, my dad and brother were both unknowingly in the emergency room at the same time. My mom had been summoned in my brother's room when his heart stopped, and the staff realized that my mom was just 3 feet away. They had asked my mom to come in there and talk to him and grab his hand and scream into his ear and try to get him to realize they were there so he could fight harder. My mom had been there calling out his name as they were doing everything to get him to come back to life, and she had stood there witnessing it all. I saw my mom, and she looked at me. She came to me for a hug and simply said, "Teddy." For some unknown reason, I smiled. I looked at her and I pulled away from her and I put my hands on her shoulder, and the first thing to come out of my mouth was, "Mom, you got to be with John." My first thought in that situation was how lucky my brother was to have our mom there for him. She was the first and last voice he heard before ascending into heaven. I held my mom and just kept saying, "He's so lucky. He is so lucky." My eyes watered as I shared that experience with the fire chief. He put his hand on my shoulder, and then I asked him, "Is that weird?" He said, "No, it's wonderful and more normal than you think. You'd be amazed at how many people experience deeply troubled events in their lives and smile because they suddenly realize how lucky they are to be in that situation, and how lucky they are to be alive." Positivity is everything and everywhere if you believe it. So I want you to look for it, and I want you to live it. Even in that situation in my life, the first thing I could think about, the very first thing that came to my mind was, man, is that cool that my brother got to see my mom and hear my mom before he ascended to heaven. That's beautiful. And that's what positivity brings to the world. There is nothing going on that cannot be met through positivity and driving us forward. You have to accept the situations that you're in, and there will be very difficult moments, but at the end of the day, how we come out of it is going to be with a mindset, and how we lead and how we live and how we love is going to make a difference. So this week, be the buffalo this week that pulls all the forces towards the problem with positivity. Be the gravity that combines all the negativity and positivity and pulls it in one direction so that you and everybody around you can positively get through it.
Hey, put the world away. Fight a little longer until you feel okay. 'Cause there's nothing I can do when everything's the matter and there's no one left like you. Wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Heal your heart with rhythm and blues. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Hey, why do you delay? You fickle as emotion, I know it feels that way. But hope's a honey in the air, a melody around you and no one else is there. Wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? And heal your heart with rhythm and blues. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? So I've been learning as I go. There are 100 more I know, and I wanna close my eyes and wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? And heal your heart with rhythm and blues. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too?